So people will say to me, I have a Facebook page. Do I really need a website? A lot of them think that they own the content on the Facebook page, but you don't. And so you don't have as much control as you'd like as well, because Facebook is changing the structure. Sometimes they limit what you can do as far as, for example, a contest, if you wanted to run a contest.
So just, sorry, I'll interrupt once in a while because I know what people do or don't know about. So what Julie's talking about there is on Facebook, you can have a web page, so to speak, a relatively active one, right on Facebook. So it's basically your Facebook page with a business look to it. The problem with it is that it's really owned by Facebook, and so down the road you can encounter issues with them sharing all that information and doing other things with your data. And that may be why, when, like in my case, I don't want them to own what I'm putting up there. I want to be able to have control over all of my content. So that's why I have my own page. So.
And also, there's a timing issue. If you post something, it appears on someone's newsfeed and then gets pushed down. So it doesn't stay up there as long as you do it. It's got a short shelf life and attention. Once people are on Facebook, they tend to go off and check out how their friends are doing. So you don't necessarily have their full attention. So now I wrote this single little shit here. So that's supposed to say like SS website or something. Your business website should have 3 components. And Tony has asked me specifically to speak about the blog portion and the social media integration. So I'll talk a little bit about the actual business website at the beginning. What I did before is I posted this called a Prezi. So instead of PowerPoint, it's called Prezi. And I posted that on my website. So if you don't have to worry about frantically taking notes, the videos I may cut out because it loads really slow. But if you want to refer to it, I'll also post the video of this presentation. And I'll put that on my Google Plus page, and I'll explain later why I choose to do that. So just speaking about the business website, at the very least, it would have a company logo, background information, products and services description, and contact information. And this is just for people who want a presence on the web. So whether or not they have a presence on the web with this minimal site is up for debate. It's kind of like building a room without doors. So the blog and the social media integration is what helps you open the doors and invite people in. And we'll be talking about that. So ideally, at its very best, it would describe your vision and purpose for your company, the product and services in maybe more detail in a description, the founders and personnel, catalog or portfolio, particularly if you're into landscape design, portfolio is important. A store, social media integration, and blog, and I'll deal with those 2 important keys later. And my sister, I have to tell you, is a landscape. She has a landscaping company. So if you've been out in the heat doing this, she loves the outdoors. I like the outdoors too, but I don't do heat well, so she looks quite happy now, so it's her busy time. So I can talk a little bit about, especially portfolio and a gallery for landscapers be really important. So this one's called Garden Design, and I particularly chose this site because they have a really succinct and powerful vision. And a lot of people sort of think their vision and their goals and their purpose in their website need to take up a page or a paragraph. And this is a one-liner. And it just says, from our garden to yours, we share inspiration from around the world for gardens big and small. So right there in a nutshell, she's got, or they, because I think it's a larger company, have their business. You know where they're coming from, and you also know what they're offering you. So a blog, by definition from Wikipedia, is a discussion or informal site consisting of discrete entries, just would you posts like Facebook, have all the different posts. And the one in the example here, each of those sections is a different post. And it's reverse order, so the last post appears first. And the majority are interactive, allowing visitors to leave comments. And it's this interactivity that's so important that will help fuel your business website. So what can a blog do for you? And so blogs create, and just so that you know what I'm talking about, a lot of people will refer to a whole website as a blog. And I'm talking specifically today about the page where you have posts and comments, okay? And as an addition to your, or part of your business site. So promoting brand awareness. So as soon as you add that blog page, it gets your name out there. Each post you can sort of optimize it as well. It's not, if you put up a page and the information changes, that's great for Google. But every time you post, it's also good. So it just helps keep your content updating. It builds trust. The more often you appear on the internet, the more credible you are. It's another opportunity for customer service. Really smart businesses are using the blogs as another opportunity to interact with people, answer questions, provide more information. Establishes yourself as an authority or an expert. There's someone who's an amazing podcaster, and what he's done is, and I'll talk a bit more about podcasting in a minute, but he sets himself up, even though it's his podcast, he sets himself up as the expert, and he hires voice talent to interview him and to be the radio host, as it were. So every time, and this is normal, so every time you go to that podcast, you expect him to be interviewed, but the topic might be different. So it appears as if he's the invited guest expert, but he's actually, that's how he communicates his information. So really smart to be on the internet as an authority and an expert gives you more credibility. Adding value, you can provide more information. You can give related topics to your customers. And in-depth content, so it supports niche marketing and it helps you to reach your target audience. My sister, she does landscaping for condos, but she also does home gardens. So she would have to decide where her niche market is, except she's too busy. So right now she's just working really hard. And building relationships, so the interactions just become more personal. So the example I have here is Tony's site, and here's one of his videos, and he does a great job. In this particular one, he's got a comment from a grade 7 teacher. Basically, the grade 7 teacher took his video, played it to his class. That was an easy lesson. And then now he's said sort of thank you, and then he's also recommended another topic that maybe Tony could please make a video of. So it really starts to give a sense of community.
Just a thought here, maybe you could tell us about the etiquette of doing this. I don't think there would be a problem. After you finish this program, you are then a graduate of the UBC Garden Design Certificate Program with the UBC logo. That wouldn't be a bad thing to put on your website with a link to the UBC Garden Design Program. I mean, I don't know what is there etiquette about that? Like you have to, I wonder if you have to ask permission to do that, or you just go ahead and do it and get permission later if somebody objects.
It depends if you can always have that philosophy, but if you go viral for some reason or another, then people start to pay attention and it gets a little stickier. I was going to put, in anticipation of this video going viral, I checked because I was going to put up Google's logo at one point, but I went and read all the fine print. You don't put up Google's logo. So this is another site that has, I told you, this is a close-up of that same blog. And I thought this one was interesting because he doesn't have the comments. And really the comments are what attracts Google's attention. It gives that activity. And that's what Google's looking for. But he has a forum. So we can see on the far right there, his forum is quite active. He's got a lot of discussion. So, and Tony and I were talking about this before, that the discussion isn't just between the virtual instructor and his visitors, it's also between different, the visitors themselves are having discussions. So some of them are posting things they've drawn and other people are commenting on it. Some people are really frustrated and other people are really happy. So it's kind of again, a community being built.
Can you clarify the difference between blog and forum?
I think the difference that it's actually the visitors can comment to each other and respond.
So the host is not expected to participate. It's a facilitation for that discussion.
It's a multi-directional discussion
Yeah.
that would also be monitored somewhat by like you'd have to be authorized to put your information up there. But it's kind of multi-directional, whereas the comments in a blog are between you and the person blogging. Right? So it's more of a two-way thing. And anybody can read it, but basically you don't get 4 people jumping in on a discussion, whereas you tend to get that in the forum. It's just basically like the word.
You can have people commenting down. There's 2 parts to your question. One is I would monitor everything. I would myself try to approve things as long as I could before it gets out of control. Like by that I mean having 1,000 comments a day, which would be difficult to monitor. But basically, it's your business, and whatever's being said there is on your page. So you would do your best to make sure that it's appropriate and that kind of thing. And then the second part would be, I believe with the forum, it's just more flexible. People can go in. Maybe they can choose which topic to comment on, as opposed to the post. It's more sequential, and you may not be able to search the topics as easily.
I've noticed with certain comments things you can sign in with Facebook, and
Yes.
it's kind of like it's more and more common, I guess. It's people don't want to necessarily fill out a form.
No, that's right.
That's that's something that I believe you can do with WordPress.
Okay.
So you can manage that. This is a member site in particular. That's what Tony's referring to. So
Because here you pay for membership in the site. You actually pay him to have access to everything that's on the site. He's got like 300 videos or something, and so you pay him $50 a year or something, and then you've got access to all those. So you say to yourself, well, who would do that? Well, school teachers, because they get all these lesson plans for in the warehouse there for them. It actually works. And plus, they don't pay it themselves anyway. Probably the school board somewhere in the States.
yeah. And so he does offer free videos and lessons, so you can get a flavor for it. And then beyond that, so there's a certain number you would get free, and then beyond that, you would pay for the membership. So he's got quite an interesting business going as far as that goes. I'm quite interested in membership sites, actually. So, talking about Google, I'm going to talk about Google quite a bit because really, can't ignore Google. So, this is my copy of my book. It's called The Semantic Search, and it just describes basically the changes in Google lately. And basically, what happened is they have started to change the way that they list sites on their search range, the search results pages. And so what used to be the case is that if you had a business, you would just make sure you had all your keywords, and you would load up your page with keywords. You would do that in all of your text. You would make sure that all of your pictures had what's called an alt tag, and as well as a title. And then you would there were some methods they call black hat methods, where you could add a bunch of text. If your background of your page was in white, you could just load all your keywords in white font, and no one would see it, but Google would pay attention to it. So because people were trying to game the system, Google had started to implement changes around 2011. So the latest one was made 2014, and they're now trying to do something that's called, they are doing something that's called semantic search. And they did mess up a few businesses that were relying solely on keywords. Keywords are really important still, but they work in concert with the engagement and activity, which is why that social media and blogs are also important. You need to have both of those to show up and to get a higher ranking.
So you can't just have AAA at the beginning of your name.
Not in Yellow Pages, yeah. So basically, 50% of the people click on the top result. And then there's also sort of not, if you're looking for something that's not branded, so if you're not looking up Nike or something like that, then people are more willing to move down the page. So it kind of depends what your intention is when you're searching, where the majority of people are going to click. There are a whole bunch of websites out there, like Search Engine Watch, for example, that are totally obsessed with Google because duplication of content. So some people say to me, okay, so I have a WordPress site. I know there's a plugin I can get where I post something in my blog on WordPress and then it goes out to Twitter and it goes out to Facebook. But then it's duplicated content. So last week I did that. I put my video on my website and I sent it to 2 different places as well. But I also know that I go into Twitter and I put in something just for my Twitter feed or something, just for my Facebook or something, just for my Google. Plus I try to put in a variety as well. I don't know how exactly they know that those are Google busters. They know everything they do. So that last update, just so you know, that cost register was called Panda. And I thought that was kind of cutesy, like the tell us pictures of Panda and stuff, but it's actually someone's last name. So there you go. Talk about blogs. So the blogs are, the components of a blog are the media, structure, and engagement. The engagement being the part we're after. So for media, you can have text, typically links, not always, images, video, and podcasts. So podcasts, so text, links, images, video, those are all pretty common. The podcast was really popular when they first came out years ago, and now have kind of waned since video has taken over. I believe up until about 2 weeks ago when I heard someone speaking that video was it. If you want to be on the web, you have to have video. Everyone clicks on video links. It's totally amazing. But went to see a presenter on podcasts, and he says, yeah, but if you go to iTunes, your competition in YouTube is huge. Your competition in iTunes, although it's still big, you could have your podcast, your business interview every week, for example. And I'm just going to give you an example of a podcast, and that would be CBC. So they have their radio shows, or trying to think, there are quite a few, but they're just audio. And one of the reasons that this speaker I was listening to said they were so important was that all the new cars coming out with these fancy Apple CarPlay in their dashboard, and the podcast is the little purple icon, so you can listen to your favorite author or radio show. Some of that will be streaming, but some of it's also entertainment or education.
It's, I think in the garden design thing, I'm thinking the visual aspect would be probably more important. So
Yes.
there would probably be a leaning towards video rather than podcasting. But in lots of cases, I can see where it would be very useful.
So you wouldn't necessarily start here. And this is one of the things that I talk about, is that when people build a site, you put up the framework, what you absolutely must have, and then you can add the other things later. So if it was landscape design, absolutely you would make sure that you've got your gallery up. I told my sister, you need to have some sort of form on the side where people can go in and check off the things they want in their garden. Or maybe you want to put in an article about preparing your garden for the summer in the early spring, or something like that, so that year-round people have things to think about. Or I don't know what you do with gardens in the fall, but I think you're supposed to do something besides rake leaves. And so these kinds of articles, and you could for sure have them in an audio format as well. Just another way of representing. So a newsletter is one example of something that you could have on your blog. You could highlight a new product or service. You could have the interviews, as I spoke about, questions and answers, comments, editorials, event launches, how-tos, and whatever your imagination can come up with. That's what gets to go on your blog. There are people who are professional bloggers, and they talk about running out of ideas for blogs. So if you go on the internet, there's a list of 100 different kinds of blogs you can write. And some of them are even lists of other people's blogs. So there's
You just Google garden design blogs and cruise through them and see the competition around the world is offered.
It's always a good idea to look at the competition. So the engagement, at the very least, it would be your comment or reply box at the end of your post. You can add social media, follow, share, like buttons, your RSS feed subscribe buttons, polls, contests, etc., registering for courses or events, customer reviews, testimonials. These are all ways that you can engage people, and that list is also, it's not unlimited, but it's up to to your imagination, and again, to look at your competitors, see what they're doing. Awesome. There we go, social media. So, Tony's favorite question, just to get me thinking, is always, do you have to have, what did you compare them to, those social media buttons, like a badge?
Yeah, they're kind of
cheer.
like battle ribbons on a Confederate general's chest or something. You know,
Right.
they've got all these little buttons there, you know, and you kind of wonder, at a certain point, you're pushing it a little too hard, you know, and basically you should be so busy as a professional that you only have time to do 3 or 4. That's my thought anyway.
Right.
Otherwise, you're more of a salesperson than you are a garden designer.
So that is probably the biggest struggle of a small business or a business that doesn't have a social media and marketing department, is that you have that time constraint. So it kind of depends where you're at. If you're starting your business slowly over time, you're not too worried, so I was going to say you're not too worried about paying the rent, or you are so successful even part-time that it's not a problem. So there's that point where you can kind of pick and choose which social media suits your business the best. And, or you maybe have more at stake. So in particular, I happened to ask for permission to show her logo, but there's a woman in Kits who's got a studio called Yoga Buttons. And so she does yoga for children. And do you know of that business?
I saw a news story on
Did
TV.
you? Yes, okay, good. Okay, excellent. I'm going to talk about that. She's building this yoga studio in Kits, which can't be cheap. And she did an amazing job, but now she obviously is highly invested. She needs to bring in a paycheck, and so I don't know her personal story. Maybe this wasn't stressful for her, but I'm thinking, judging from what she did, she just did an amazing job. So she did everything. She had all those badges. She was on Twitter, Facebook, Google, Pinterest, Instagram. And furthermore, she was interviewed by Urban Rush. She had spots on, I think, Global TV, where she did yoga. She brought in kids. They all had yoga mats on the floor. She did this amazing job. And I was looking at, I was in one of her yoga workshops, so I could learn how to do yoga with children. And just listening to, so I went home afterwards just to Google how was she marketing. I was curious. And just it looked exhausting to me because she'd done it all within a short, 8-month span. So I think she's an amazing person. Just all those appearances and the time and the energy, and the fact that it was pretty relentless. That's what I would recommend if you're really intent on starting a business online. And I want you to note that some of that was done offline. So a lot of people will say to me, I want to be on the first page of Google, and that's going to be the magic bullet, and people will just start phoning them, and their business will get started. And it doesn't work that way. You work offline, you work online, and what I do is I help people with the online part. But I don't want them to forget that there's a whole offline part. So we've talked about a lot of these things already for blogging. Same idea: brand awareness, trust, relationship building, engagement. Inbound marketing is because it's bringing people in from Facebook to your website or wherever, and it helps with your Google ranking. It adds value. If Google sees you on Facebook and Twitter, it's going to pay more attention to your website as well. You can use it to become to be presented on the internet as an expert. And the one here that I like to talk about in particular is Google Plus, because it's a sleeping giant. And if you look at the stats, Facebook has got 1 billion active users, and Google Plus has half that. So. But the thing is we're talking about signing in with Facebook to different things. Well, you have to sign in to a lot of things with Google. So when people say to me, Facebook, I get it, Twitter, okay, but they don't really understand Google, and just cautioning people not to disregard Google at this point because it's either going to become everywhere, it already is everywhere, or maybe something new will come along. I don't see that happening in the near future.
And also there's the Google whole search engine,
Yes.
as well as Google Plus, which is essentially another Facebook, another version, right? And so they're able to put the two things together in interesting ways, and that's going to happen more and more, whereas Facebook is basically about Facebook.
Yes. It's interesting because one person said that when he did two different searches. One search he did before he was logged into his Google Plus account, and the next search he did when he was logged into his Google Plus account, and it was a different search. So different results. So what do we have now? That's Google. We've got YouTube, Google Plus, Gmail, Google Hangouts, Google Analytics, any of those kinds of things if you're more on the internet. And Google pays attention to itself. So the more Google things you do, the more it will pay attention to you and the higher you appear on those search rankings. So I have more information, but we're just going to launch this little one here.
When you picked your domain, does it matter whether, because landscape design, garden design are going to be keywords, so should the domain say design in it or landscape in it, or would that?
Well, the old thinking was that your keywords, so the words that people would search for, if you're going to look up landscaping, you often have landscaping. So the old thinking was absolutely yes, it has to. Now that Google's changing things around a bit because people were kind of gaming that, they would have, for example, if you had what do you call them, a rip-off of the Nike shoes or something, and you put Nike in your domain or something similar, and people were just repeating, they would have two keywords that weren't even related, didn't make sense, but, well, it made sense, but it didn't really sound like a domain name, it was just weird. And so people were trying to do that. So I think Google's not responding, but I don't have the facts for it. At this point, it can't hurt, but if you have to do weird things with language in order to make it work, then and there are just some names that are just clever. I'm trying to think of a name that has nothing to do with the product. I think there's a red frog bank out there or something online. It's just they just love that visual. And so,
Tangerine.
yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't say that's a hard and fast rule.
For Lululemon.
Okay, there you go.
I have a question. I don't even know the answer. I'm a landscape architect, and so I often will Google. I look for contractors and I look for things in the industry. And this one company keeps popping up, and they are on and I live on the North Shore, and they are on the North Shore. And they seem to pop up every time I type in anything on Google. They pop up in the sidebar, or they pop up in stuff. And they are, I don't know how they get their name out there. So I phoned them because I had a very large job in New Westminster. Huge job. It was on 2 city blocks. And I had all the working drawings and the specs and a bid for it. And I said, would you be interested in bidding on this job? And they said, well, can you describe it? And I told them, he said, oh no, we don't do anything that big.
Yeah, right.
That's way too big. And I was like, oh. But how is it that they have, I just can't get a read from them on Google.
It's amazing. Google AdWords is one way, so the paid advertising. So some of what you're seeing might have been paid, not necessarily. But also, if you notice the old, sort of the original search pages would just have a long list. And maybe some paid at the top, but then a long list. Now they're being divided into news, so maps, popular, or sometimes there's even a box with the actual fact. If you type in a specific question, it'll just pull up the fact for you, often from Wikipedia or something. So now the search results page has different areas to it, and so maybe they just put in their address with Google Places, so they come up there. Google Places is one of the absolute, especially if you're, for example, a garden or landscaping company, I would absolutely recommend because your businesses are local. So that's one of the first things I do. For a lot of people that I work with, they have home-based businesses. They don't want to put their home business address on, so they're at a disadvantage in that respect.
Well, most of us probably would have a home
Yeah.
business.
So you have to figure out how you feel about that. Some people don't mind and some people don't.